Welcome to the Athletes in Motion podcast, From Race to Recovery, with your hosts, Tom Riegel and Kenny Bailey.
Hey, Tom, how are you?
Hey, Kenny, I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. I would like to introduce you to Emily Bailey.
Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Great to have you here.
Emily is a ballet dancer from the Nashville Ballet II company.
Yes.
It's your first year here. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Welcome to Nashville.
Thank you.
I understand you just finished with Nutcracker, and
Yes.
that was probably crazy bonkers crazy. So how are you feeling about that? How long does Nutcracker generally go, and how long do you generally practice for that?
So that was a marathon of anything.
Yeah.
We started rehearsals for that in October, and then it just progressively got more intense, starting with just learning most of the corps de ballet pieces, which is all of the group pieces, which takes the most time in terms of rehearsing because it's getting a group of 12, 8 people to be the exact same perfect choreography every time. Totally locked in.
Yeah.
And we had about 4 casts of that, which alternated between different girls for each group piece. And then from there, worked on the solos, worked on character stuff, and it was a whole thing. And we start in studio, then we transition towards working in costume in studio, and then we move over to TPAC, Tennessee Performing Arts Center, get everything there. We have a whole youth cast that is wrangling all the children to be ready to be on stage, which is a lengthy process, but is an exciting experience for them.
How many hours a day is that? What does that look like? Is that a 12, 14-hour day?
That's like, yeah. From start to finish, normally we would start class at like 11:45 and then finish at like 10.
6 days a week?
Yes.
7 days a week?
Wow.
It kind of alternated.
Okay.
It was a 3-week situation of shows. We had 14 shows that
was
spanned
the next
over
step.
2 weeks.
When did the shows actually start? That's just the getting started, the rehearsal
the getting
part.
started. And then in December, we had 2 weeks of shows. The first week was mostly like 1 show a day, and then the weekends were like Friday, Saturday, Sunday with 2 shows a day.
2 shows a day.
And then that following week leading up to Christmas, we performed until Christmas Eve. It was 2 shows every day.
Wow.
So it was
Yeah.
very intense.
And then are you tasked to be in every one of those shows then?
Yes. So I, unfortunately, one of the girls that I danced with got injured, so I ended up having to do a lot more shows than I expected, so it was very physically taxing. But I had about 7 roles total, so it was a lot of choreography to remember, a lot of characters to remember, but it was really, really fun and probably one of my best Nutcracker experiences I've ever had.
Oh, my God. That's great.
Yeah.
Do you is it the second show kind of better than the first one because you warmed up on the first one, or is the second one you're just trying to figure out how to just get this thing done? Like, is it like,
I feel like for me, every show is a new, it feels fresh. Obviously, at that point, you have all of the choreography in your muscles.
Yeah.
So you start to have more fun with being able to perform it, and especially if it's in a character role, you can start to get more excited about the faces and like
So you can really act into it at that point.
Yeah, and especially after the last 2 years of not having a live audience,
Oh, yeah.
dancing in front of a camera and just sending it out to the donors and everyone.
Yeah.
It was really nice to have feedback. If you like came on stage, there was actually like a reaction, a gasp or a clap or something that was like
you can react
okay,
to, right?
Yeah,
So
we can
there's
do this.
something
Okay.
Especially on like that last show, it's like 8:30 at night and you're just dying. You hear like one cheer or something. You're like, oh, thank God.
Thank you. Thank you. We're doing it for a reason.
Yeah.
So you've been doing this since you've been dancing your whole life. Is that a
Pretty
fair thing to
much,
say?
yeah.
When did you really start?
I started when I was 6 years old. My mom, I guess it was kind of the traditional, let's put her in ballet. I did ballet when I was young. Let's throw her in. She put me and my sister in, and my sister hated it. It was not her thing. And I actually really didn't like it either. But my mom was like, just stick with it. There's something there. So I complained about it for 3 years, and then I joined Cobalt, which is the Contemporary Ballet of Pennsylvania, when I was 9 during their youth cast to perform Nutcracker. Okay. And that was when it just like instantly clicked, and I was like, this is it. This is what I love.
Nice.
I'm diving head in, which is like a lot for a 9-year-old to decide.
Yeah.
But
So at 9, I mean, did you go through like, high school years thinking, I'm going to go be a veterinarian instead, or was it like, this is it, this is my life?
it was
like, full gas?
it was a snap decision of I fell in love with it, and I didn't look back since. I like. A lot of people have like moments of doubt of like maybe this isn't for me, maybe I should go to college, maybe I should do this, because that isn't a traditional path, and obviously that is nerve-wracking for parents that have been told have a college degree, you got to be successful, ... So springing that on my parents of I'm doing this and I'm gonna audition for all these places and see what happens. It was like, oh my god.
See what happens, Mom?
Careful what you wish for.
I know. I was like, you made me stick this out.
Exactly.
She wanted to quit, but no.
No.
Who's going to Italy? You're not.
But,
So did you start going to then ballet schools then, or did you just are they companies, or how does that work? I guess.
Yeah. So
I mean, how do you balance that sort of traditional?
At 9. Not really.
There is no balance to it.
Yeah, so at that point, that was when it kind of clicked of like, okay, I really want to do this. I'm going to take this seriously. And then that sort of progression of starting to move towards more professionalism starts probably about age 13. There are these things called summer intensives, which are exactly what they sound like. It's over summer, and you travel to a certain city that has like a pretty big ballet company, and you train like hell for 5 to 6 weeks.
Wow.
And those auditions happen from like January to March. It's a really big ordeal. I remember in high school, every weekend traveling with my dad, I'd go to high school, because I went to public high school, which is 7 to 2 every day.
Yeah.
And then dance from 2 to 9 every night.
Okay.
And then the weekends, my dad and I, we would travel. I'm originally from Lancaster, Pennsylvania, so we would travel to Philly, DC, Baltimore, New York, every weekend, doing like 2 or 3 auditions every weekend, and then coming back and going to school on Monday morning. So, yeah.
And having to keep the grades up.
Yes.
On top of that.
Which thankfully worked out in my favor, but
good.
yeah. Yeah.
So I think Tom and I, if I'm speaking for you, Tom, I apologize. I don't know if you know the depth of ballet or not.
I do not.
Okay, I was kind of assuming yes on that one.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah, she would be correct.
Are there? This is going to be dumb question time. So are there different emphasis on ballet? Like I'm trying to equate it to football, which is terrible analogy. Like, are there certain or cheerleading? Right? There's tumblers. There's top of the pyramid kind of thing. Are there different, for lack of a better term, positions in ballet? I mean, and is there one that you focus on, or how does that work?
Sort of, yeah.
Am I asking the right question, I hope?
Kind of.
Okay.
Yeah, I think with ballet, you kind of have to be a base level of like pretty good at everything. There are obviously things that everyone has, like, is their niche. For me, I really love jumping. It's a big thing in ballet. I was trained in a studio that really focused on
Jumping.
being more of like a all-round dancer versus fitting into a certain box. So there's different training types. There's Vaganova technique, which is very Russian-oriented. Balanchine, which is like American ballet. New York City Ballet in New York City is George Balanchine's company. He created
So how are those
it.
different? Is it more Russian is more traditional sort of movements, and then American? That would be my assumption, right?
So Vaganova ballet is kind of like I feel like what most typical people think of when they think of ballet. It's the very strict, like, angry ballet of like we have to do this.
No smiling.
Grind or die. Yeah, there's no joy in this.
Okay. Yes, that's the one I think we know.
Yeah.
It's smile. No
which,
joy.
Yeah.
To be fair, there is still that in all ballet, but and George Balanchine was a choreographer that in the 1900s really kind of just broke that barrier. And it became more, I think, at least from my perspective, audience-oriented of this is for people that want to go and see a show that's exciting. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't as technique-focused. It wasn't as perfection in ballet-focused. It was more about what you're actually seeing.
Sure.
Which personally is my favorite kind of choreography, but yeah. So I think it was more audience-pleasing, and especially in that era of change in America, exciting to see.
So when you're in Pennsylvania and you and your dad are traveling around, is it whatever's available, or do you try to look for different dance groups that have something that more plays to your strength?
Pretty much second. Yeah.
Okay.
When I was younger, it was pretty much just scoping out what I was looking for. I grew up in a really small studio, which I think had benefits and downfalls. I had a lot of like hands-on attention, which you don't get in a group of 50 kids.
No, you get more of a private lesson every
exactly.
time you're in there.
Yeah.
It's kind of cool.
But it was also a very smaller perspective of that. So traveling to these places and kind of having to figure out, okay, I hated this audition class, or ooh, I fell in love with this, was kind of a learning curve from 13 to 17, and going to summer intensives and figuring all that out was weird.
Yeah, I mean that's as a teenager going through that, trying to figure all that stuff out. That's pretty impressive that you were actually able to drive yourself through that.
And
that's pretty
doing
cool.
schoolwork in
And
between
doing
auditions and obviously being a teenager
and,
having crises every 20 minutes.
Drama? Was
Yeah.
there drama?
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
When you showed up to some of these places, I mean, coming from a smaller ballet company, right? When you went to DC or Chicago, was there an intimidation factor of like, oh my gosh, these are really good people, or is that something that you felt like you were on par? Because your technique was similar, I guess.
I think it was kind of a mix of both. Okay. From ages like 13 to 15, it was more of a, okay, this is what my competition is. I've got to step it up a little bit.
Yeah.
But once I hit 15, 16, I kind of started to find my groove a little bit and be like, okay, this is pretty good. Like, I'm pretty matched up. I can like kind of fit in here.
I can hang with them.
Yeah. I actually grew up doing ballet and modern pretty equally, which is not super common. I kind of made that switch in like sophomore year, freshman year of high school of I want to really just do ballet. But as much as I just wanted to do ballet, I really appreciate that I grew up with a modern background because especially here in Nashville, there is a lot of contemporary ballet work that comes in and different choreographers that throw stuff at you and you're like, what was that? What just moved? What is happening right now?
Am I doing
that? But I think that background gave me a little bit more of a grasp on being able to pick up little nuances and things that with ballet, because it's so strict and working in millimeters and like, even if like your finger's wrong, correct that, like, versus being able to find a little bit more freedom and not look like a ballet dancer when you're trying to do other movements, which is still hard when you do ballet all day, every day, but it's like deep within, so I can pull it out when I need to.
So when you have choreographers that we kind of talked before about, each one's going to put a thumbprint on sort of, even Nutcracker, for example, there's going to be a different choreographer that wants to make it different from the previous person, right? Or they want to be able to do it on their way. Is there certain types of choreographers you tend to gravitate towards versus other types of choreographers? Or is there, like you said, a little bit more modern, a little less structured?
I think one of the things that drew me to Nashville specifically was Paul Vasterling. He's the artistic director for the company. His movement style is very musical based. And I grew up playing the cello, which...
hold on. So you're... Wait a second. Okay. So let's see. Public school, decided to play the cello, do modern dance and ballet. Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. And were you splitting genomes by any chance? Or anything else, right?
My grades weren't quite that good.
But close.
Close. They were close, no. But...
She needed a fallback, so cello she thought would be, like most people's fallback.
Most people, classical music. Doesn't require any time at all. No.
None.
But yeah, so I think that gave me a really huge appreciation into music and learning a little bit about music theory. Obviously, I was pretty young, so it wasn't as in depth as it could be. But it made me a very musicality-based dancer. So when I started learning some of his choreography, that like when I came for the summer intensive at Nashville, and being able to kind of see like, oh, this just feels right in my body versus going other places and being like, this feels really weird and I can't figure out the counts for this and everything just feels like uncomfortable. This, like, a lot of his choreography just feels innate for me. So that was one thing that really pulled me towards Nashville. And
it's like a conductor.
Yeah.
For the symphony, same thing, where they're stylizing that piece and working with you, work with composers you like and composers you don't like.
Exactly.
Or conductors.
Exactly.
Yeah, in that same sense. So I could see where that would translate across pretty easily on that. So
So let's talk about sort of you're in Nashville now. You talk about sort of, up at, there by 11, there till 10. So what does a typical day look like? I mean, clearly it's hard. Everyone, I think, check. But what is the what that makes it difficult? Is it just physically demanding? I mean, how does that day look?
Yeah, so that 11 to 10 is normally like performance schedule. Our typical Monday through Friday schedule is we have a almost 2-hour technique class in the mornings. It's like an hour 45, which is pretty much just to like warm up for the day, maintain the technique you've built as a student, and also keep working on the things that can always be better. Because the finger. Because really there's no end to how good you can be in ballet, which is one thing that I really clicked for me. I think once I turned 9 and I was like, let's do this. Was there's no end to really what you can do. So every day you can strive for a little bit more and figure out that felt weird yesterday. How can I make adjustments to
But really
make
working
this
on the
feel
fundamentals, spending a lot of time
exactly
on going over those fundamentals.
Yeah, so then you have that base to work off of. So when you do get a choreographer that comes in as like, can we throw in this crazy thing when you're supposed to traditionally be doing this? It's like, okay, I have the strength, muscle memory that I can do that, and then also like let my head fall completely backwards or close my eyes and not be able to see anything, and have that body trust, like body to mind connection, that you can figure that out without falling on your ass.
So that brings me to the kind of injury, I guess. Like you mentioned before that you were doing more shows because of an injury. How prevalent are injuries? Is this something you deal with every day, and it's always something that's either tweaked, or is it? How does that world look like?
Yeah, so I think this sounds horrible, but there hasn't been a day that I've woken up without pain in a really long time.
You're a professional athlete.
I think that a lot of people can connect with that, but I think it's really hard to figure out the line of what's a pain to work through and what's a pain to stop. Yeah. Because a lot of people say pain is weakness leaving the body, but I've never connected with that. Yeah. Or it's just pain. Yeah. I feel like soreness is weakness leaving the body. Yeah. But
and there's a lot of people that cross that pain. What is pain, right? Pain, sharp, acute pain is not good. Yeah. But people also, I think, equate, to your point, soreness as pain, and it's not.
It's not.
It needs to be differentiated, because it's a huge thing. Like you wake up with, we're getting old, so we wake up with soreness every day. Like that's just part of it. But we're also athletes. We also move around and do a lot. So, but there's no acute pain, and if we have that, then that's a problem. Same thing, I would imagine, for you.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like once you get in, I normally get in like an hour before class starts, so I can actually have time to warm up and like kind of figure out, okay, what do I need to do to facilitate? Is this muscle tight? What do I need to roll out? Is this thing not feeling right? What do I need to engage?
So mobility is key.
Exactly.
So what's your mobility routine like? What would you do in that hour before your warm-up?
So I start almost every single day with some sort of yoga flow. That's been one thing that has... I've started that during quarantine, and I've done it every day since June 1st, 2020, and that was like a huge change in just for mental health, physical health. It's really just helped me grow in a lot of ways, and I'm incredibly grateful for that journey that keeps going on. Yeah. And that kind of is like my initial start of like, okay, let's get the body moving, blood flowing, and then assess, what do I need to do? Is my foot hurting? What TheraBand exercises can I do? We do a lot. Obviously, our feet are a huge part of our life. And we're strapped into little blocks of wood every day. And on our toes. So taking care of, oh, do I have this like blister that I need to wrap and be careful before I start, or what's stiff, and working through that and doing some stability exercises. A lot of core work is involved. So I normally do like 5 to 10 minute core workout before, and just get everything like stacked up for the day, so that when when your leg is by your ear, you aren't.
So what's the most common types of injuries then? Are they generally ankle injuries, or
usually a lot of foot injuries? Surprisingly, not just foot injuries. I think a lot of people just expect, since we're on our toes, that our toes are broken all the time, but really broken toes are very rare. A lot of ankle injuries, a lot of hip injuries, back injuries, and then for a lot of men who do like all the lifting and stuff like that, shoulder injuries are really, really common.
Okay.
Yeah. I would say primarily from just experience and like being around people, most of the things that hurt most of the time are hips and
hips. I can see. Yeah.
It kind of makes sense on the hips, right? Yeah. Because you're driving from there, you're leaping from there, right?
If you're not lifting properly, if you're not in that proper position, then I could see it tweaking the hips out.
Yeah.
Being tight.
And then, of course, I think we were joking around, like, you could eat 3 almonds and a piece of lettuce. I mean, what is, the typical, everyone thinks ballet is like, I get tea.
Yeah.
And then I get a smell. Yeah, exactly. And I think I get to smell meat later, but that's all. I mean,
thank you.
There's two sides of me is thinking, well, you have to maintain a very, very toned body. So, and it's fuel at that point. It's not just food.
Yeah.
What does that diet look like? So we don't think it's 3 almonds and a piece of lettuce, or is it 3 almonds and a piece of lettuce?
It's I think that's a very tricky topic in the ballet world. I feel like it's gotten a lot more well-rounded in terms of the dancers that went through that era of like just the brutal smoking cigarettes to get like skinnier, all that stuff. They are the ones that are now becoming in charge of things. And it's either you get the good side of the people that are like, I want to make this experience for the dancers that are working now better and not what I had to go through, or you get the flip side of I went through this. You have to do it. It's a rite of passage.
This podcast is brought to you by Marlboro.
New sponsor.
No. For your ballet leanness, Marlboro.
But so I think it is a very tricky topic, and it's still very taboo. We don't get a lot of the resources that I think a lot of like college sports do in terms of the support of you're an athlete, you need to fuel like an athlete.
Do you guys have like a nutritionist that or is that not a thing?
Not on staff. We do like we have like the cards at the front of the desk where you can grab it
one.
If you need
if you want to get a nutritionist. Got it.
It's up to you.
It's up to you.
Right.
Though.
To you to take care of your body and fuel yourself properly. They leave that up to you.
Exactly.
But in the shape of, because it also goes back to sort of taste, right? I think 15 years ago, having a very lean, skinny kind of look was something that most of America is doing. Now it's sort of I don't want to say thicker, but people tend to be are okay with athletic or a body shape that's different. Has that had that influence on you guys as well? Like,
I think
people want to see a little bit different look on the ballet, or they want a traditional kind of thing?
The waif look is not in anymore. Please.
So in Georgia Balanchine, who I was referring to earlier with New York City Ballet, there was a very deep aesthetic that was driven into America because of the look he wanted, which was long legs, small head, small neck, short torso, and that was the blueprint. And that kind of lingers in ballet still. One thing I really like about Nashville Ballet is they're very open to not having that aesthetic. They're very forward in terms of what the company needs to look like. It doesn't need to be a flat slate. They want people that look different, and they want people that can dance, not just look like they should dance.
Right.
But I think there is, regardless of where you are, there is that overlying. You need to be a certain.
You need to have a look.
And more so, I think it's now leaning towards you have to be fit for your body type, because realistically, muscles are built differently on different people, regardless of like everyone could eat the same 3 almonds and a piece of lettuce every day and not look the same. So I think that is still a very tricky subject, and it's still very much not talked about as much as it should be in the ballet world. But
so how do you navigate that? So what are you? I'm assuming you try to eat lean and healthy is kind of what you try to do, right?
So I, full disclosure, we're getting deep. We're getting deep. Eating disorders have been a part of my life for as long as I can remember, realistically, like 10 years old. I made the decision at 9. I was like, okay, here's the way. Which I still struggle with to this day. It's not anything that I'm afraid to hide because it's part of life. You think ballet, you think, there she is. So it is difficult navigating that, but finding the support that you need and having the resources that are now becoming more acceptable and, I guess, reliable in terms of people that know ballet, because it's different working with people that don't know that world and that side of recovery and just being like, oh, you can go to this hospital or whatever like that. And it's like, no, I have a career. I still need to maintain that career. How do I navigate that in a world where you can't just close your mirror or anything. Like we're surrounded by mirrors every day. We're working in millimeters. It's a perfectionistic career. And that's a perfectionistic mental health issue. So I think,
Are there guidance that you try to give kind of younger dancers behind you about that? And
yeah, absolutely. I teach at Nashville Ballet as well. And I do see like it. Oh my gosh, it just breaks my heart when I see some of the dancers that I work with like get stuck in the mirror, like when I'm teaching a combination, because as a student, I know exactly where their brain is going.
I was going to say, you probably can spot it before they even acknowledge it to themselves. You can spot the issues that are kind of popping up.
So I think just even obviously I'm not their parent. It's not my place to jump in and like say anything that strict, but I at least try to like change how I'm talking about things versus
that's huge.
Because I mean you have teachers that say, oh, we can see your breakfast, and it's like, oh, okay.
And it's those little comments,
those little things,
acerbic little jabs and that build up, and I can't imagine that, especially in a young girl coming up. It's talked about so much now in the sporting world, college sports, with the running community.
Absolutely.
The cycling community still has issues with that.
And like wrestling too is
wrestling
a huge
the same
thing. That's like,
it's just like they're looking at every little ounce and gram, and it's crazy. It's just too much.
Well, and the weird part about it is too, at 13, especially for a girl, they're going to change. Their body's going to naturally change no matter what their genes are going to do what their genes are going to do. So you may be a fuller person at 17, and here you are like, I've decided at 13 this is my career.
Exactly.
And there's only one of two ways to do it, right? Either, go back to cello or figure out like, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's like
exactly.
Or either move to a different dance type to that would be more, quote unquote, accepting of a different body type.
And it's not like you grow all at once. Like you're not moving into it. All of a sudden your arms are longer, legs are longer. It's just
growing pains.
As it goes through this thing. So you hit that whole dorky age and you're just kind of like, wow.
Yeah.
And then that's working on you. And then you have someone saying, oh, we can see your breakfast. I mean, I just want to, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. So I think just changing the way that teachers address things can be huge, because if you're going home and beating yourself up every day, which ballet dancers we do, and then you come in and you're beating yourself up already, and then you have another person who you hopefully look up to coming in over and poking at you.
Can you tell when you're sort of getting in that mode now?
Oh, absolutely.
And like where before you wouldn't know the signs, and then all of a sudden it's ooh, my habits are starting to creep in that are not healthy.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think, I really do think that there should be more therapists and psychologists readily available for dancers for that, because it is such a insane career. And there are so many factors of it, of obviously aesthetics of eating, aesthetics of looking and creating these lines in the mirror, and then obviously standing in front of a mirror for 8 hours a day. That's not good for anyone, no matter how healthy you are. That can't be a positive impact.
Because it's, some sports, your body type's going to turn out. It's sort of, if you're long and lean, and you can jump well, you're going to play a different position in basketball than you are if you're 5'9". You're probably going to be the point. If you're 6'6", you weigh 200 and some pounds, you're going to fill up the middle and be the center, right? Same thing in football. When you see professional football players, their body types are practically designed, and it's partly because they built it that way, but also mostly because that's what they turned out to be, right?
Yeah.
Whereas cheerleaders, dancers, and people that have an aesthetic that people expect to have in their head, you not only have to perform just as well as these professional athletes as well. I mean, you're a professional athlete as well, but you have to look great doing it.
Exactly.
Right? Where they don't.
Yeah.
They're going to look great because of the conditioning they have, not because that's what they need to do to look.
Yeah.
And,
Exactly.
I mean, you look at an O-lineman, they're not, they're not exactly aesthetically gorgeous, right?
Yeah.
But, they're strong and they're fast and they're able. Where now, it's not only do you have to hit it like every millimeter, but you have to make sure you have that look to hit it as well.
Exactly.
Which is insane.
Yeah.
So
it's like people's first comments are what you look like, and then
how good
dancing.
you're doing.
Yeah.
Not
And
how
I
you're
think-
good.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Not the
It's
opposite.
up there.
We're looking at you first going, wow, okay. Ooh, and then,
Yeah.
but they dance well.
Yeah.
It's like,
And that was
wrong
another
order.
thing, too.
Yeah.
I was thinking back to one of the auditions I went to. We walked in, and obviously we're pink tights, black leotard. We're all, like, trying to look the same. They didn't even, like, start the class first. They lined us up, and then we just sat. Like, we literally stood there for, like, 20 minutes while they looked through and, like, wrote down stuff. And you were just like, okay, like, we're standing in front of a mirror. They're literally comparing us to the girl next to you.
Wow.
Like,
Oh, brutal.
at 13, what are you supposed to do with that? Go home and
how
be like,
do
it went
I-
great, Dad.
How do I process that?
Yeah.
So
brutal.
how did you talk through that then? Was it mainly your dad that you leaned on to be able to do that? Were there, there's obviously some traditional things that are happening in the company sometimes that aren't healthy.
Yeah.
It sounds like when you landed in Nashville, there's a much healthier sort of way that's going on.
Yeah.
Knock on wood. Thank you.
Yeah.
As you started getting older, did you start realizing that okay, I need to surround myself? I mean, who helps you sort of gets you ready? I mean, who do you lean on when it comes to that? Other dancers? Like you said, is it a mentor? Is it your dad?
I think both of my parents have been incredibly supportive in my journey, which I'm very, very grateful for. A lot of dancers don't have that support.
Yeah.
But yeah, mentors at the ballet, friends and family that I can trust with that kind of information, therapists, like eating disorder specialists, all of that stuff just helps incredibly. Sure. And like, obviously there's never one solution that fits for everyone, but I feel like if I can get as many resources as possible, then can't go wrong with more information and more knowledge about how to handle things.
So you were able to build a little team around you to support group around you to help
carry
get through that.
Yeah.
What was your trigger point that you kind of recognized it and reached out for help?
This was when I think I was 15, and it was when I was balancing school, cello, ballet,
the cello,
audition.
damn cello every
the
time.
Damn cello had got me every time.
Cello.
And I think I just hit like a threshold of I can't keep this a secret anymore. I just like literal breakdown in the car with mom on the way to ballet. And from like next day I had an appointment with therapists and stuff like that and started that. And really it's been ups and downs since then because you get better and then something happens. And if that's a vulnerability of yours, if something goes sideways, what do you fall back on?
Yeah.
So.
Well, it sounds like yoga was helping both mentally and physically, right? On that.
Absolutely.
So because, like you said, you're in the middle of COVID. Your whole life is in front of an audience. That's gone.
That's gone.
Right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, it seemed like yoga was a nice kind of way to get that balance back.
Absolutely. Yeah. So during quarantine, we were dancing in our living rooms. We still had like Zoom classes and rehearsals to like stay in our best shape as possible. Okay. That was terrible. Like frankly, I think any dancer can say the same thing. But yeah, yoga was something that really helped me in a way of like, okay, I'm moving. It doesn't have to be perfect. And I'm not in front of a mirror.
Yeah.
And it's solely for me. It's however many minutes a day I can manage. If it's a busier day, maybe it's only 10 minutes. If it's a somehow off day, which doesn't happen often,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
if it
Doesn't
does,
sound like
then
it, yeah.
maybe I can go to like a hot yoga studio or something and do it in a group setting. But that was something that was really transformative to me, of being able to take just a few minutes every day for myself to do something that is still movement oriented, because regardless of whatever happens in my life, I don't think I could imagine myself doing anything. I don't think I could imagine myself at a desk job.
Yeah.
It would have to
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
some sort of movement oriented or something like that. And it was still movement, but gentler, and I could tailor it to what I needed for that day.
Plus the breathing.
Oh my gosh.
The breathing.
The
is
breathing,
the
yeah.
mental aspect of it that really
Yeah.
cleans you out.
And taking
Get you.
lessons from yoga, like the breathing and stuff like that, and then being able to bring it into the studio of
Sure.
like, okay, I'm doing this really, really hard variation that I'm dancing or like group piece that I'm dancing for 4 minutes straight. I don't leave stage. How the hell am I going to do this
Yeah.
without
Don't hold your breath the whole
hold your
time.
breath
yeah.
the whole time?
When you get off stage and you
Yeah.
pass out.
We fall over,
Yeah.
slumped against the bar. Yeah. So I think incorporating that breath and using it to help me, like, stay in a balance longer, or just
Yeah.
something like that, I think has helped me. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
so
we've
much.
talked about sort of the danger aspect, or the uglier side of it. I mean, there's also beauty in kind of what you're doing. When you're on stage, obviously, you're getting that feed from the audience and all that good stuff. What are those things that light you up? Like, is it you hit the mark, or is it that thing that just brings that joy back when you're going through this practice and you're doing these things? What is that one thing that just sort of, yeah, that was worth it?
I think for me, it's honestly the whole experience. I think the one thing that I learned through COVID was the rehearsal to stage process is really just the part that I hold dearest to my heart. Being in a studio with people that I love so much. I really am grateful that I have such a good environment here at Nashville Ballet. I love the artistic staff. I have such a good group of people that I get to dance with every day. And those moments of laughter in the studio, or one thing that we do is if someone does something like really impressive during class or rehearsal, is like we snap, because it's a less invasive form of clapping.
Yeah.
So I think just those moments of seeing someone do something that just like literally makes your jaw drop to the floor, and you can like snap for them, or like being snapped for, those little moments of being like, okay, this is what makes me feel alive. And like even on days where you wake up and you feel like garbage and all you want to do is take a hot bath and lay face down on the ground. I still am like, okay, I get to get up. I get to do what I love every single day, no matter how exhausting or painful it is, or how much Advil I have in me at the moment. Like I still get to go in and
Brought to you by Advil.
yeah. I was gonna say we need a second sponsor.
Marlboro cigarettes and
Advil
Advil.
cigarettes.
Cigarettes and Advil.
Is there another? Do we have a booze thing we can throw in?
What else can we do? Yeah.
Some almonds.
Some California almonds. Sign up now.
Yeah, but I think the whole experience as a whole, and feeling that transition of, hey, I couldn't do this as well 6 weeks ago as I did on stage.
Yeah.
And being able to feel that process in your body, and then also like if there's video footage of it, being able to see it, I think is just the most rewarding thing. And it I have no doubts ever about that this is what I'm meant to do every day.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I mean, the affirmation of that is really kind of neat.
Yeah.
Right?
And
Being
I'm
able to
so
do it.
lucky that like I'm so young and I've found it
Yeah.
that quickly. Because
Oh,
so many people I know that like I went to high school with or something like that, they're still figuring out like what their
What they want.
passions are. And I'm just incredibly lucky that it clicked
Yeah.
so soon at 9.
At 9.
So what is the average sort of career shelf life, if you will, of a ballet dancer? So do you, like, at 33, are you now considered old and terrible and like, oh, well, that one.
Like football.
Yeah. Is it, or how do you see that?
It's kind of dependent on the individual, I would say. One, how well you take care of yourself is a huge part of longevity. Because there is a very common like baby ballerina problem of they're prodigies at 16, they get a contract at 17, and then they're done by 22 because they burn out so easily. And because they were just beaten to pulps by the time they were 15, and then it just kept going from there. So I think how you take care of yourself is a really, really huge part of it, and what do you do after that technique class and then 6-hour rehearsals until 6 p.m. and a lot of us work side jobs. Like I teach in the evenings, so sometimes I'm there until 8 o'clock at night. And what do you do when you get home? Do you just go to bed? Do you have a drink and pass out on the floor? Or do you take the time, roll out your muscles, ice, take the time on the weekends to go do Normatec, cryotherapy, things that you can do to help yourself feel better the next morning, I think is a huge part of how you can maintain. And also cross-training too. A lot of, I do yoga as cross-training. I have a personal trainer, Lily Sato, who's a soloist with the company of Nashville Ballet, actually, and she has her personal training
Nice.
certification. So she has helped me a ton with building up muscles.
Strength training.
Yeah.
So, strength training. Yeah, because I would see that would be critical too.
Yeah, so balancing out unevenness so that you're not relying on certain muscles too much and falling back on
Is there,
habits,
lack of a better term, is there an ego thing involved too if you've been a soloist or you've been at a certain level in your career or you're dancing for a certain company and then as you get older, it's not hitting. Does that happen where then suddenly you're no longer the soloist and you have to reconcile with that? Is that part of the issue of sort of going through that professionalism?
I'm not fully sure. That actually is a good question. I haven't gotten there yet.
Stay tuned.
Stay
Part
tuned.
two.
Yeah, part 2.
Okay, we're going to meet again in 2028. We're going to find out. She's smoking a cigarette going, I don't really care anymore.
Throwing almonds, but, yeah, so I think obviously there is a bit of ego involved in ballet. And once you get to, I think, certain positions of like directors and stuff like that, different companies can get to that level. And there's power complexes of, I run this whole thing. How much can I get away with?
Yeah.
But I know.
Something to strive for.
Something to aim for.
Yeah.
But again, I feel like it's how you handle it and how you were raised to handle it. And are you going to take that and make it a better experience for those around you, or are you going to put them through the ringer like you were?
Yeah.
So I think,
it kind of sounds like for what we're hearing, you're sort of more the former than the latter, right? Which is learn from. Yeah. And it sounds like you're, like you said, you're dealing with struggles, but it sounds like you're fairly balanced in understanding kind of what's going on, right? You understand that this is a grind, but the grind itself can be part of the reward.
Absolutely.
You understand that sort of you have to be careful, especially in those formative years, and that you just sort of make sure that you bring other people up versus saying, okay, I'm here and now you have to go through the same sort of torture I do, that you can learn and pass that forward, which is a great attitude.
Yeah.
To
and
have.
I think that I'm lucky that I've encountered quite a few people that are like that, and that's just kind of added to my inspiration of there's only going to be change if someone does anything about it.
Yeah.
And even if it's a small thing, if it's phrasing something a different way, phrasing a correction a different way, or just being more of a guidance versus beating someone down to make them better. Yeah. I think that's more
there's
beneficial.
a hammer approach that you can do it, right?
Yeah.
And there's a fear approach, or there's a mentor approach, right?
Yeah.
So,
and I think, hopefully being a mentor to younger dancers, but still having that discipline and being like, you do have to kind of be crazy to get as far.
You really have to put the work in. But there's a positive spin on it that you can that you strive for, and I think starting to see a little bit of change in that hopefully is what's happening, and that'll be much better.
And if you have that love for it, then realistically anything makes it worth it. So
what are you doing now? What do you have coming up?
So we post Nutcracker, we had a little bit of time off, which was nice.
A little bit of time, like 8 hours.
We had a solid 20 minutes. So right now we are working on a show that's going to be happening in April. It's our Future Artists Showcase, which features the artists of Nashville Ballet's second company and then their professional training division, which is where I started when I first came to Nashville Ballet.
Okay.
So the PTD program, Professional Training Division, is more of students based, and then the second company and trainees are leaning more towards professionalism. It's kind of like the internship of the real world in ballet. So we just finished up a resident choreographer, Aaliyah Cachet. She was performing with The Lion King at TPAC. She's a former rehearsal director for Ballet II, which is Alvin Ailey's company in New York. Big deal.
Tom and I are like, yeah, Ailey too. Yeah, Ailey, of course. Ailey.
Yeah. Which is really exciting. We have we're bringing back a work that artistic director Paul Vasterling did in the 90s, which is really fun to watch that video and try to figure out how to learn from a video and put it on our own bodies. The associate artistic director is doing a new work, Nick Mulliken, so that we'll be working on that in the next few months. And then we have another resident choreographer coming in, Charlotte Boyd Christensen, who she staged a piece on us over summer, which I loved. So I'm so excited that she's coming back.
Nice.
And then in, I believe, May, we're going to be performing at the Skirmerhorn, downtown Nashville, and we're going to be doing Firebird and then Billy the Kid.
Okay.
With music from Aaron Copeland, which is really fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
that's good. So it sounds like a nice eclectic mix, right?
It's
so
going to be a busy season, but I'm
that's
like,
good.
There's so much choreography and different styles, and it's going to be a lot for the brain to handle, but I couldn't be more excited.
Good.
Nice.
Yeah.
How is Nashville at supporting sort of ballet? Are they?
They're really good.
Yeah.
We have a really, really nice facility that we work in, and there are a lot of community outreach programs that we do to try and bring ballet to schools in the city, and we have like a whole adult division, and for like adults to be able to take ballet classes.
Tom.
And I know, I was like, you guys want to come?
Plie.
I haven't plied in so long.
And then we have a whole, we have our academy at Nashville Ballet, which is like the serious students that like they're going for it.
Yeah.
Age 9 me.
Yeah.
And then we also have a community youth division, which I teach a lot of the classes for, which are people that just like ballet and they just want to come and they don't want to make it a whole life.
Yeah.
But they still find the joy and growth in that. And I love teaching those kids because the pressure isn't quite as high. So they can have a little bit more fun with it, but they still all have incredible drive, which is beautiful to see in teenagers. And
That's so cool.
Thank you for showing up.
Absolutely.
This has been a fun
this
conversation.
has been fantastic.
Really great to get to know you and learn all about.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been fantastic. Yeah.
So, and we want to thank everyone. This is where I get to do my tag. Thanks you all for listening. Give us some likes and thumbs up. All that good stuff helps the algorithms and allows us to get this out to more people. So this is our first episode of the second season. So we're having a lot of fun with this, meeting some great people. Thank you all so much. We appreciate all your comments, and we'll catch you on the next one.